She was only 13 and forced into a marriage she didn't want, but her courage and wit would change the ranch, and everyone in it, forever. The morning sun barely touched the horizon when she was woken by the sound of voices outside her small room and the heavy weight of expectation pressing down on her chest. She lay still for a moment, listening to the clatter of boots on the wooden floor and then murmurs of her family speaking of duties and arrangements. She had no say, and her stomach twisted with anxiety because she knew the conversation was about her, about a life she had not chosen, and that she was far too young to understand fully or to consent to. The rancher waited impatiently in the main room, eager to meet his future bride and expecting compliance and obedience, and she felt a cold fear settle over her as she realized he saw her as a possession rather than a person. Her mother urged her to dress quickly in plain clothes suitable for travel and for the role she was to assume, and when she looked in the mirror she barely recognized the girl staring back at her, a child forced to become an adult before she was ready. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her simple dress and braided her hair carefully because she knew decorum mattered even if her heart was pounding wildly against her ribs. Downstairs the rancher examined her with an appraising eye, his demeanor confident and certain that she would accept her fate without resistance. She tried to keep her gaze low and her voice soft when spoken to, but every word felt heavy with the knowledge that her opinions and feelings were not expected to matter. Her family spoke in hushed tones to each other about the practicalities of the marriage, the benefits to the ranch, the security it would provide, and she listened silently, wishing she could disappear into the walls, wishing the snow outside could carry her far away from the cabin and the responsibilities being imposed on her. She felt small and overwhelmed, but also an undeniable spark of defiance because something inside her knew this was wrong and that she should not be forced to grow up before she was ready. The rancher smiled politely, expecting gratitude or at least submission, and when she hesitated he furrowed his brow in mild irritation, and she felt the full weight of his authority and the societal rules that allowed a child to be treated as though she were a commodity. Her mind raced, imagining escape routes, thinking of the animals outside the cabin, the fences, the forest beyond, and realizing that leaving would not be simple, yet imagining it gave her a strange sense of relief. For a fleeting moment she spoke carefully when finally addressed, making sure her words were polite yet firm, expressing that she was too young to be a wife and not ready for the responsibilities being demanded of her. But the words were met with murmurs of dismissal and soft laughter, as if her youth and courage were a joke or a nuisance. The rancher nodded as though he had heard but understood nothing, and the adults around her exchanged glances that seemed to say that the girl would learn her place eventually. The cold winter morning pressed in from the windows, and the sound of the wind in the trees outside mingled with the tension inside the cabin, marking the beginning of a day that would define her courage and determination in ways she could not yet know. Her heart pounded with fear and resolve, and she knew that this was the moment she would have to decide whether to bow silently or to find a way to stand firm against a world that had already decided her fate. Despite the cold and the tension of the morning, she stood her ground, refusing to accept the role forced upon her. She spoke carefully and clearly, asserting that she was too young to be a wife and that she would not take on responsibilities she did not understand or consent to. Her words were met with shock and murmurs from her family and the rancher, who had expected obedience without question, yet she did not falter, and her voice carried a strength that made some pause and others shift uneasily in their seats. The rancher tried to assert his authority, expecting that anger or impatience would cow her into compliance, but she remained composed, moving with a quiet confidence that unsettled him more than outright defiance. Her small acts of courage were subtle at first, helping with chores efficiently but refusing to overstep her own boundaries, correcting small mistakes in a firm yet respectful way, and speaking when necessary to clarify her thoughts. Each action demonstrated intelligence, insight, and independence that challenged the assumptions everyone had about her age and capability. The townsfolk and ranch hands observed quietly, at first unsure how to respond to a girl so young exhibiting such determination. Some were sympathetic, while others whispered that she would learn eventually that obedience was expected. She noticed the watchful eyes and did not shrink, instead choosing to act with calm dignity that drew respect, slowly winning over those who valued practicality and courage. Her ability to remain composed in tense situations allowed her to negotiate small tasks, gaining small victories that built her confidence and began to shift the perception of those around her. The rancher grew frustrated with the realization that authority and intimidation had no power over her. She demonstrated quick thinking in situations involving the ranch animals, noticing patterns and potential problems before they arose and suggesting solutions that were sound and practical. His respect grew slowly, even if he would not admit it aloud, as he watched her navigate the daily challenges of ranch life with skill and courage. Her independence was paired with compassion and awareness of the needs of others, allowing her to influence the environment of the ranch subtly yet effectively. Small successes in her tasks reinforced her belief in her own ability and helped her maintain a sense of agency in a situation where so much had been imposed upon her. Each day she grew more confident in asserting her voice and her presence. She learned when to stand firm and when to listen carefully, and her courage inspired others who had felt powerless to recognize the value of speaking and acting with integrity. The pressure of expectation remained, but she no longer allowed it to define her, and the rancher began to understand that he could not bend her will and that her youth did not equate to weakness or incompetence. Her presence began to reshape the dynamics of the ranch, and slowly, the girl's courage and quiet determination became impossible to ignore. When a crisis struck the ranch, threatening both the animals and the livelihood of everyone involved, a sudden illness spread through part of the herd and a storm damaged fences, leaving the cattle exposed to the cold and predators. Panic rippled through the rancher's mind because he realized the situation could not be managed alone and every moment counted. She stepped forward, immediately assessing the damage and the health of the animals with a precision and knowledge that surprised everyone, including the rancher. Her hands moved confidently as she organized temporary shelter for the cattle and secured the weakened fences using clever improvisations and practical solutions drawn from observation and intuition. She calmly directed the ranch hands who had previously doubted her judgment, and even the rancher found himself following her lead because her instructions were clear, logical, and effective. Her hidden talents extended beyond simple chores. She anticipated problems before they fully arose, noticing subtle signs of illness in the animals and predicting which areas of the ranch needed urgent attention. Her intellect and courage inspired those around her, giving them hope and confidence at a moment when despair could have taken over. The rancher felt a mixture of awe and humility as he watched her work tirelessly under the stormy sky, her small frame moving with determination and authority that demanded respect and cooperation. Word of her capabilities spread quickly to the surrounding community, who began offering help and resources, recognizing that her skills were vital to the survival of the ranch. The storm passed, but the damage could have been lasting had it not been for her quick thinking and bravery. The barn was repaired, fences reinforced, and the sick cattle stabilized, all because she refused to stand idle. Despite her youth, she had proven that her age did not limit her insight, her courage, or her ability to act decisively in times of need. The rancher, who had initially viewed her as a child to be guided or controlled, realized that she was far more than he had imagined. She had become indispensable not just in labor but in leadership and problem-solving. Her bravery reshaped the way he saw authority and partnership on the ranch, and the townsfolk who had once doubted her now regarded her with respect and admiration. The crisis left the ranch intact and stronger than before, and it revealed the full extent of her talents and inner strength, proving that courage, intelligence, and determination can come from the most unexpected places, and that even a 13-year-old girl can change the course of a ranch in the hearts of those who thought they understood her limitations. The events of the crisis shifted the dynamics of the ranch and slowly transformed how the community viewed her. The townsfolk who had once whispered doubts or dismissed her now offered gestures of respect and even sought her advice on practical matters because they recognized the wisdom and skill she brought. Despite her young age, the rancher, who had begun the season expecting compliance and quiet obedience, now found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about leadership and partnership. She continued to demonstrate her intelligence and courage in daily tasks, solving problems before they became crises and guiding the ranch hands with calm authority that belied her years. Each day she gained more confidence in asserting her ideas and decisions, and the rancher increasingly relied on her judgment, seeing her not as a child to be guided but as a capable partner whose insights were invaluable. Their evenings together were quieter now, filled with discussion of plans and improvements for the ranch and small shared moments of camaraderie and understanding that were entirely new to him. He began to listen attentively, valuing her perspective and realizing that her courage had not only saved the ranch but had shifted the balance of respect and trust within it. The community began to notice the change not only in the rancher but in the ranch itself. The animals were calmer, the work more organized, and the environment more cooperative and harmonious. Her presence encouraged others to act responsibly and with care while respecting her voice and leadership. She had taught by example that age did not define ability or wisdom, and that courage could demand respect even in the face of tradition and expectation. As Christmas approached, the ranch took on a renewed sense of purpose and energy. The once tense and rigid household now felt warm and alive with collaboration and mutual regard. The rancher, once proud and authoritarian, now openly acknowledged her contributions and insight and even sought her guidance on matters he had previously thought solely his domain. Their bond deepened not only because of survival and shared responsibility but because of mutual respect, admiration, and an emerging emotional connection that neither could deny. The young girl had changed everything: the way the ranch operated, the way the rancher saw her, and the way the community understood what courage and talent could look like in someone so young. She had become a force for transformation whose influence could not be ignored and whose presence reshaped the world around her in quiet but powerful ways. By Christmas Day, the ranch had transformed into a place of warmth, order, and newfound respect. The fences stood strong, the cattle were healthy, and the barns were secure. The townsfolk visited, offering greetings, small gifts, and congratulations, no longer skeptical but genuinely admiring the young girl whose courage and skill had preserved the ranch and saved livelihoods. The rancher stood beside her watching the morning light glint off the snow and fences, a quiet awe filling his chest as he realized the full impact of her presence. She had arrived as a child forced into a role she did not choose, yet her intelligence, bravery, and decisiveness had earned her authority and respect that no age could diminish. Together they moved through the ranch, inspecting the animals, planning the day's work, and sharing moments of laughter and conversation that were light but meaningful. The young girl had not only saved the ranch but had reshaped its entire atmosphere, teaching the rancher and the community that leadership, courage, and wisdom are not confined by age. The rancher, once expecting obedience and silence, now valued her insight, understanding, and partnership, recognizing that she was an equal in thought, effort, and presence. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the snow, they returned to the cabin to prepare a modest Christmas meal, their camaraderie and respect for one another evident in every small gesture. The house glowed with firelight and the scent of baking, filled with a quiet sense of triumph and belonging. The girl's voice, once overlooked and underestimated, now carried weight and authority. Her bravery had not only saved lives and property but had fundamentally changed the relationships and dynamics of the ranch. The townsfolk left with smiles, acknowledging that this 13-year-old girl had altered expectations and challenged assumptions, leaving an enduring mark on the community. The rancher understood that the greatest gift of this Christmas was not the celebration itself but the realization that courage and integrity could come from the most unexpected places and that respect earned through wisdom and bravery was far more powerful than any command. The young girl, standing proudly beside him, no longer feared her position or her age because she had claimed her place with determination, skill, and heart. Their first Christmas together became a symbol of hope, partnership, and the transformative power of bravery, proving that even the youngest voice, when courageous and true, can change everything.